And we are live. Welcome, ladies and gents, to Media's live show, episode 22. Today, I know I kind of already talked about this in prior streams and live shows and stuff, but I really had to not get all my thoughts together because I feel like this is something I'm going to be harping on off and on for the rest of my life. Which is in the title. It's my least favorite trope in modern fantasy. But first, we got some other things to talk about. It's been a fairly productive week for me. As you guys saw, yesterday, I released the first of 3 podcasts talking about the Ruby soundtracks. And I have just barely started editing the second one. And like I said, there are going to be 3 of those. But the first thing I need to talk about is the new episode of My Hero Academia, because My Hero Academia Season 8 continues to just be incredible. Like, if My Hero Academia had this level of production the entire time, I don't think there would be any debate on what is the greatest shonen of the decade. And the greatest shonen of the past 2 decades, really, because, it started almost 10 years ago. So it started halfway through the prior decade, and we're halfway through this decade. So, best shonen of the past 10, 15 years is far and away My Hero Academia, and the season has just proven how good it could have been the entire time. My Hero Academia doesn't necessarily need this level of production because I think the story and characters are very good, certainly good enough to elevate and make do with the sometimes subpar animation of some of the middle seasons, season 5 in particular. But and I kind of made note of this when I did my big My Hero Academia stream when the manga ended, is that My Hero Academia started in a very different environment compared to the current environment. When My Hero Academia started, One Piece was in Dressrosa, I believe, or at least the anime was still in Dressrosa. Then maybe they were in Whole Cake Island by that point. By the time the My Hero Academia anime started, I think we were in Whole Cake Island in One Piece. Jujutsu Kaisen had not started yet. Demon Slayer had not started yet. Those shows did not yet exist when My Hero Academia started. And those 2 shows in particular raised the bar of what is expected from these big budget shonen productions, and that bar has only continued to be raised by post Wano, One Piece, and Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War, Solo Leveling, which I actually hate, but it is certainly flashy. And My Hero Academia was always good. It was certainly like really good for like a seasonal shonen, but it kind of like stayed on the same level. So as the ante around it kept on getting upped and upped and upped, My Hero Academia kind of stayed the same. Like season 4 doesn't look any better than season 1. Season 5 in some cases looked even worse. Season 6 is great, but a lot of that is again elevated by the writing and just the fact that it covers one of the best arcs in My Hero Academia, and it does it justice. In terms of the actual like fluidity and detail and direction of the episodes, season 6 isn't all that much of an improvement over season 2 and 3. You actually get a little bit of that in this episode. The image I'm using here is obviously from the new episode. This is straight up an homage, a callback to the United States of Smash scene from season 3. But with the season 7, the production finally like had an uptick sometimes. And then there were other times like Tokoyami popping off against All for One. They're like, here's a really detailed PNG. But season 8 has looked movie quality for all 4 episodes we've gotten so far, and this, like, it just keeps getting better and better. Like, this episode is the best at looking episode of My Hero Academia, and I said the same thing about the episode last week and the episode the week before that. It's just been an absolute treat. I really like All for One's backstory. I like that he was always kind of a bastard. He's very different from Shigaraki, and I've always appreciated that. I talked about that 2 weeks ago when I was talking about what makes a great villain, and I talked about the comparison and contrasting of All for One with Shigaraki, and how together they kind of form the perfect supervillain duo because like their goals overlap, but they're not actually on the same page. We see that again in this episode where All for One realizes that like he's kind of fucked. And everything was going his way. The winds should have all been blown in his direction, but on top of all these like little pests and these pebbles all mounting up against him, the one he was trying to get to, Shigaraki, rejected him. All for One did too good of a job. He made Shigaraki too good of a supervillain, and Shigaraki was so good that he was able to resist All for One trying to teleport him, and that spelled doom for him because now, like, even if he does catch up, not only does he have to contend with both Shigaraki and Deku, he has to do so with very limited time and very limited strength because all these people have been putting him to work. And of course, we got Bakugo answering the age old question, what would you do with baby Hitler? You kill that baby. Bakugo really said, fuck that kid. The coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb, or hydrogen baby versus coughing bomb, as one of the memes I saw stated. But this was very well earned from Bakugo. This is his like shining moment. The moment where he becomes All Might's hero, and the moment that he is finally able to move on from holding himself responsible for All Might's retirement, while also just annihilating the great king of evil that is All for One. Uh, and doing so with just annihilating him, just dusting his ass. Uh, Through like a pure just instinct and combat aptitude. Like people kind of forget that Bakugo was always kind of pro hero level when it comes to his combat ability. The main thing you always need to work on was his fucking stupid ass personality, his just horrible attitude, which is something that even like at the end of the series and then the epilogue and stuff is something he still struggles with, which I kind of appreciate. I kind of appreciate that he doesn't become like a completely different character because of his character arc. It does get annoying sometimes when he regresses. Sometimes with the way he regresses in some moments, but other times it's fine. Uh, but people forget that he's not just super powerful. He's also really smart. Like I think he was the third highest ranked student academically when they released that info. It was like Momo Yaoyorozu was number one, Ito was number two, and then I think Bakugo was number three, and Deku was four. Like Bakugo straight up was better at like math and science than Deku was, and then he has the audacity to call Deku a damn nerd. Anything else I want to say about this episode? Oh, a lot of people I've seen were like confused when All for One started glowing or whatever. Like, I thought it was pretty obvious that he killed the glowing child that we've been hearing about since episode one. The like first officially documented metahuman with a quirk, which was the kid born in India who had like glowing skin and formed like a whole like religion around him. All for One found him, killed all his followers, stole his quirk, and that's why he was glowing. And we actually see him use that quirk against All Might. But then when he fought Stain, he regressed beyond the point where he had that quirk. Uh, but like it's called attention to when he starts glowing against All Might, and then again like when we see him show up in the flashback with Yoichi, and he said like he straight up says what he just did, and I don't know why people are so confused about that. Uh, because yeah, it turns out that while that was the first documented case of a quirk appearing in a person, that quirks had actually been appearing in people for weeks, if not years, before that. But they were just so innate or unnoticeable, or in poor people, like All for One's homeless mother, who had like bone spikes as a quirk, which we also see him use as a baby to try to kill Bakugo, and Bakugo just hilarious because Bakugo did not need to do that. Bakugo straight up acknowledges that like, oh, he's an infant now. He'll never make it to Shigaraki in that form. I don't have to worry about this. He'll disappear in a few minutes. I don't need to worry about it. Like, nah, you haven't won till you won. Dust that bastard. Uh, Great stuff. Great character. Bakugo's just such a fun character. But next thing I wanted to talk about is some news about One Piece. We got there was an event I think it was earlier today talking about One Piece, and we got two really big pieces of news. The first is that the season 2 of live action is coming in March. You can bet that I'll be covering that. And the second and the more interesting, I think, of the two is that One Piece is actually going seasonal. I did not actually see that coming because, like, people have been demanding that One Piece go seasonal since, like, 2014, 2015. That's about the same time that My Hero Academia's anime started. It was like, hey, did you know that you can have better pacing and better production value if you don't make an episode every week all year round for 15, 20 years? Almost going on 25 years? Uh, but Toei, Shonen Jump, and Shueisha, they just never had the incentive to take One Piece off the air. But I think they kind of were experimenting around with this last year when they went on like a 6 month hiatus, and they did that like Fishman Island remake as like a season of anime, and apparently that did really well. And the reception around One Piece's heightened production uh, for the back half of Egghead Island was enough to convince all the people in charge to turn One Piece seasonal. And that's so weird because One Piece was there's a couple other ones, like I think Detective Conan is still weekly, and that might actually be it. Detective Conan might be the last of the weekly anime now. Everything else is seasonal. Because I know Pokemon was another big one that was weekly for a long time. So is Black Clover. Black Clover's not doing that anymore. Thousand Year Blood War is obviously like seasonal. Everything, yeah. Yeah, One Piece was kind of like the last holdout of that era, and now it's growing and changing and adapting with the times. Um, With that said, I am very upset about them stating that it's not going to affect the pacing. Because the whole point or the whole appeal of doing like a seasonal anime is that you can do 2 to 3 chapters per episode and not worry about catching up with the manga. The manga is already very far ahead. We've been in Elbaf for a hot minute now. And the anime is still not quite through Egghead. We still haven't even gotten to my favorite moment in Egghead Island, which I think is at it might be coming in the next episode or two. I can never remember like when exactly it happens, but I'll know it happens when it happens because it's such a just baller moment, and it's gonna be my new wallpaper when it happens. Um, but it makes me very disappointed. Like it's even I feel like it's actually going to make me like the One Piece adaptation even less. Whereas with like Wano and Egghead, they were making do. They were making do with what they could do with their time constraints, and it was great. It looked incredible. It raised the bar on animation, and it looked better than some seasonal anime like One Punch Man season 3, aka One PNG Man, which is a complete train wreck and a absolute fucking clown show of a production. Fucking 6 years for a glorified slideshow uh, that everyone hates. Like no one is liking the new season of One Punch Man. Uh, but now it's like you don't have the excuse anymore. Like One Piece will no longer have the excuse of, hey, we had to kind of like fill time because we're doing an episode every week, and you know the manga is barely weekly. The manga is barely a weekly shonen title. Uh, there's a lot of months where it just straight up goes bi-weekly or even fucking monthly. It seems. But yeah, like it's very disappointing. It's going to be very disappointing to know that we're only going to get 26 episodes a year, and they're going to look uh, every bit as poorly paced as the 50 or so episodes we get every year for the past couple years. Speaking of One Piece, though, we had a big shift in what's going on in the manga. Uh, Emu pulled up to God Valley in the flashback, and Domi reversied Roxy Zebek somehow. A lot of people are not happy with this, and this all but confirms the prevailing theory that Domi Reversi is something that is like an instant win condition, but only if you're on the person's homeland. Like, we know that Zebek is from God Valley, and if that is the only reason why this Domi Reversi is working, then that's good. And it also just strengthens the presence of like Emu as an earth god, as a god of the world, the earth. Like he controls the domain of everything that is below the clouds and above the sea. He's an earth god trying to be a sky god. Nika is a sky god. You know, sun gods are historically lumped in with sky gods. And then you also have the Sea God, who is pissed at all the Devil Fruit users existing. There are a couple other fun bits in the chapter. Garp being like, "I don't care if it's an elder, I'm gonna punch it because it's hurting Marines too." Very based of him. We have Roger, Garp, Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom, at least one of which is in her prime. Big Mom is in her prime. Everyone else we know kind of like gets stronger later on, especially like Kaido. Like this is the Kaido who would struggle against like a pre-time skip Gecko Moria. Uh, uh, and we know that like even though Roger and Garp and Whitebeard are all like monstrously strong, that the three of them constantly fighting each other for the next like 15 years after this puts them at a level far beyond that. Like I believe that all five of those people surpass Rox in terms of strength. So it just makes sense. Like Rox is indeed a very powerful person. Rox Diesebek is the baddest motherfucker of his day and age. But the Great Pirate era is so much more competitive that the people who survived and thrived throughout that era all kind of surpass Rox. Like, I think Kaido surpassed Rox for the same reason that Luffy will eventually surpass Roger. Same thing with Whitebeard. Like, Whitebeard and Roger absolutely surpassed Rox. Roger actually succeeded. He found the One Piece. He conquered the Grand Line. Something Rox was never able to do. And Whitebeard battled Prime Roger on equal footing. And they could easily like retcon this, and it would be a retcon, but it is stated that Roger and Whitebeard had the highest bounties ever recorded for a pirate. The only one who might have a higher bounty than either one of those would be Dragon, who is called the most wanted man in the world. But I believe that like Dragon's bounty is going to be somewhere in between Roger and Whitebeard's. I think Dragon's going to be like a 5.2, 5.3 billion. We know Roger was 5.5, Whitebeard was 5. Rox, I'm thinking, was also like maybe like a 5, like a 4.95, like higher than Kaido's and Big Mom still, but lower than what Whitebeard's ended up being, if only by a smidge. We don't actually know. I would like to know like Rox's bounty. I would like to know how much credit the world government gave him and how much they tried to repress information, because we know they do that. We know that they will lowball people's bounties in order to like hide the fact that they are secretly terrified of that person gaining more of a following. One of these days I should do my list of like who I think are actually the most powerful people in One Piece, because just a couple of my takes. I do think Mihawk is stronger than Shanks in a one-on-one. I think that is beyond question. Uh, I think Mihawk is also stronger than Prime Rayleigh, but not stronger than Roger, and probably not stronger than Rox. Uh, so again, it's a different era. It's a different era. Of course, Mihawk's title is a lot more impressive because he was or is from the Great Pirate era, whereas Rox is from an era well before that. But you know, it's a different era. There's always going to be a world's strongest swordsman. There's always going to be a world's strongest man. There's always going to be a world's strongest woman. There's always going to be a world's strongest creature. And how impressive that title is has more to do with competition. Like, Mihawk's only real competition is Shanks. Like, there's other prominent swordsmen, but like, I think Garling's actually a scrub. Like, I think Shanks and Mihawk would annihilate Garling if either of them fought him. Uh, Garling's stocks are down after he got his ass beat by Zebek. Uh, and so I think Shamrock might actually be stronger than young Garling. I think because now Garling is an elder, he's taking Saturn's place, that he's going to get some kind of like amp or boost from Emu. This is going to make him, you know, a lot stronger. But my point with Garling and also Ethan Barron v Nasajuro is that they don't consider themselves humans. They consider themselves gods. They are celestial dragons. They stand atop the Holy Land of Mary Joie and are therefore kind of ineligible for the running of World's Strongest Swordsman because they're not from that world. Really, like it's a technicality, but like I would be totally fine if that technicality is used to explain like, oh, Nasajuro or Garling or even Shamrock are stronger than Mihawk and Shanks. Even though I think Nasujiro is the only one of those three that's actually stronger than uh, than Shanks or Mihawk. But we need to see, like, another point in that is the fact that we've actually seen Shanks pop off. We've seen Shanks use a named move. We've seen him use Divine Departure. We have not seen Mihawk take a fight seriously yet. Shanks is playing his hand before Mihawk is. All right. Next thing I want to talk about is the subject of last week's live stream. Jurassic World Evolution 3. I have, as of like 2 hours ago, I finished the campaign. I've not completed it yet. So there are 3, 6, 9, 10. There are 10 levels in the campaign. And in order to 100% complete them, you have to 5-star all 10 islands. I have 5-starred 9 of them. But I completed the story. I completed the main story. The first batch of objectives for the final level before you get given the reins to turn into a 5-star park. This is a very stark improvement over Jurassic World Evolution 2 in most ways. I think there are some finagly things about it. I've noticed a few times where dinosaurs have seemed to teleport through fences. I wish that when you're in the map view, that emergency shelters would glow yellow when they're being in use, or just glow yellow period, because sometimes it's a little difficult to locate them or remember where I placed them, especially in like campaign where I'm just like slamming them down with no real rhyme or reason, just shooting them where I can fit them where I need to. I think the breeding mechanic is extremely well done. It does get a little out of hand if you're not attentive. I ran into that problem a couple times throughout the campaign, and also once my sandbox mode where I wanted to breed just one batch of young Struthiomimuses for one of my enclosures, and I ended up with like 4 batches. And the more species you have within a group, and the more that they mature, the more space that they need, and every map has limited space, even the sandbox ones. It is disappointing that there are some notable absences in this game compared to Jurassic World Evolution 2. I kind of want to on a day on a week that's slow. I might actually do this next week if I can't think of anything. I kind of want to just kind of break down all the dinosaurs. I want to stream Jurassic World Evolution 3 more. When I get a little further in my sandbox park, I definitely want to show that off. But like, let me see. So I actually have a spreadsheet. So by the end of Jurassic World Evolution 2's cycle, there were 122 species. The third game introduced 5 new species in the base game and 2 more in the deluxe edition, so 7 more. But we lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. We've lost 39 species. There are 39 species that I have in the game in Jurassic World Evolution 2 that I do not yet have access to in Jurassic World Evolution 3. And of those, only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Only 7 of them are going to be coming as free updates. The rest are going to have to be paid for again, which is going to be very disappointing if they're not paired with several other new species. As far as the actual management goes, a lot of it's the same as Jurassic World Evolution 2, but it's a lot easier to get things kind of automated with the maintenance posts. I actually prefer the way that the ranger stations were used in this than in Jurassic World Evolution 2, because in Evolution 2, I ended up not really using the ranger stations a whole lot because it wasn't necessary. It was a waste of resources, and it also like tied up my rangers in so that they'd be like on these little routes when I need them for more pressing matters, like repairing fences and stuff. Whereas maintenance team now does that, so it takes a lot of the pressure off the rangers so that they can focus on monitoring the dinosaurs. So I like that. I like the kind of it did a lot to enhance like the automation, which allowed you to kind of focus more on the tasks at hand and the crisis management stuff, rather than constantly being like, gotta look at these dinosaurs again to make sure that they're still happy. I have also noticed an improvement in the dinosaur AI. A big problem I had with a lot of the challenges in Jurassic World Evolution 2 was that you'd have these big enclosures with all these like multiple species and stuff, but then they'd be in groups, but then some of them would just wander off away from the group, get lost, and wind up in a different part of the enclosure that doesn't have anything that they need, and then they'd freak out, break fences, die and of starvation or whatever, and it's just a hassle to keep them all together. In this, that they do a lot better job at like actually sticking together, and staying where like they need to stay, like forming territory, and then when they're comfortable in that territory, they actually just maintain that territory until it becomes unsuitable for them. TRX32 says, love the new modular building feature in Jurassic World Evolution 3. Yes, I do too. I have not been able to utilize it a whole lot. I'm not good with that stuff. I'm not an architect. I don't have a good eye for like symmetry and keeping things level and even. And I don't have like a 3D brain. Like I have trouble thinking of things as 3D images. It's just a fault of mine. But the community has made up for that, and I have already on my Twitter, I've been keeping track of ones that I've seen that people have shared, and liking like those posts, so that when I start making my sandbox parks and start making ones with various themes, I can pull from those. Saw someone make the kitchen from the first movie as an enclosure for the raptors. Yeah. Making a Godzilla skeleton display for my park. How are you doing that? Because I fiddled around for a while trying to get like I was trying to put the T-Rex head on a Spinosaurus body in order to make like a 1930s version of what we thought Spinosaurus looked like. And I was having a hard time like getting it even and making it look good. Uh, so yeah, I was having like I said, I'm not good with the whole modular building thing. I will say, finding things and knowing where to look has been kind of difficult. It's been a lot better than it was in Planet Zoo. Like they made a lot of very notable improvements in the modular building stuff compared to Planet Zoo. Specifically, like just having the workshop available straight from your menu, straight from the pause menu on the map. When you're in the middle of building a park, you can just pause the game, enter the workshop, find what you want, download it, plop it down, bada bing, bada boom. The Planet Zoo was a lot more convoluted with trying to find good blueprints and download them and find out which tab that they fall under. So yeah, Jurassic World Evolution has just always been a lot more user friendly than like Planet Zoo and Planet Coaster, and I've always appreciated that. There's a reason why I have now. I have 35 and a half hours in Jurassic World Evolution 3. I have 35 hours in Jurassic World Evolution 1 on Steam, plus probably 200 on my PlayStation, which is where I put most of my time in, and that's what I had all the DLC on, was on PlayStation 4. And I have 298 hours in Jurassic World Evolution 2. I think that might be the most. I'm going to quickly go through my Steam library. I'm looking 298, 298. 4, 36, 35, 31, 20, 52, 9, 9, 7, 1, 20, 0, 0, 0. A couple of games I haven't even downloaded. Ooh. See, Skyrim. Skyrim, I only have 130 hours in, but that's on Steam. That does not include all the probably another 100 hours I put into it on PlayStation 3 back in 2012 when I first played it. Uh, I only have 38 hours in Ultimate Ninja Storm 4. I could have sworn I played that a lot more than that. I only have 60 hours in Battlefront 2. Granted, that's in Steam, not including the decade I put into PlayStation 2, playing it on PlayStation 2 over the course of 10 years, and all the time I've spent on the remaster on PlayStation 5. I just checked Vegas Pro, which is my editing software. I have 1,413 hours in that. I hate that it keeps track of that. But yeah, Jurassic World Evolution 2 is my most played game on Steam. Um, wait, hold on. Empire War. Yep. Yep. Grim Eclipse is at 102 and Empire War is at 129. So yeah, Evolution 2 is the winner of most hours put into on Steam by me. But compare that to Planet Zoo, which I also do have quite a bit of time in. I have about 30 hours in Planet. 22. I have 22 hours in Planet Zoo. If I had more. T-Rex, I'm still fiddling about it with it. Trying to get it right. After that, I want to try make a King Ghidorah one to go with it. Ooh. Uh, Tag me on Twitter if you post that. Like tag me in it. I'd be interested in giving those a look at least, even if I don't end up using them in any of my parks. Anyway, enough about dinosaurs. I could go on and on, and I low key just wanted to turn this live show into another stream for Jurassic World Evolution 3 and work on my sandbox park. Uh, but I had a more interesting thing to talk about, which was, speaking of video games, I caught back up with may I ask for one final thing? And the plot twist that this is an isekai. It's an Otome game isekai, much like My Next Life as a Villainess, but told again, much like My Next Life as a Villainess, told from the villainess's perspective, but this time the villainess has no idea that she's the villainess. Um, and I'm wondering how they're gonna go about doing that. Um, because the twist is that Terra Nessa has kind of been instigating all this stuff against Scarlet, because she's from another world, and I'm assuming because tropes and cliches that she was a player of this game, wasn't very good at it, loves Prince Julius, and wants to split her and Julius up and make Scarlet's life miserable and possibly even kill her, and is using this like religious figure and its followers to instigate all that. The show's funny. There's not really much else interesting beyond the whole like, oh, this is secretly an isekai. It's an isekai told from the perspective of someone who didn't get isekai'd. Uh, but it really made me think about like how prevalent video game tropes and terminology has become in modern fantasy. And I kind of wanted to go off on it a little bit because I think it's a very damaging trope. I think that what works in a video game works in a video game for very specific reasons. It is a very different medium than film, television, animation, and it should remain so. And it's very, very different from prose. I think video game terminology and logic has no business being in prose. I got a few points. I don't have a whole lot of points though. I kind of want to keep this live show under an hour because I got a lot of editing to do, and I also want to get back to Jurassic World Evolution 3. But I have things to do, places to not go. So the first thing I want to talk about is stats. You know, the stats in the game, like plus or like a 15 intelligence or 20 strength. That stuff exists as well as XP in games in order to like simulate skill and simulate how you can work at a skill and get better at it. And it simulates like when you put time into something that something improves. Um, so many of these fantasies video gamify that by just making it a magic thing. Like, oh, I have plus 10 charisma, and I'm not written charismatically. Like, I'm not written to be charismatically, but people just swoon for me because I put all these points into charisma without actually doing any things that make charisma a thing. Because video game logic. Uh, and in reality, like, there are people who can do the same thing over and over and over again and be in the same line of work for years and years, decades upon decades, and not be any better at it. We tend to call those people politicians, especially congressmen. But like people don't actually have experience bars. We don't magically like level up and hit a point where like we just magically improve. It's always like this gradual thing. Which brings me to my next point, which is dice rolls. I don't like dice rolls in real time combat because the whole point of dice rolls is that they are a way for games, particularly tabletop RPGs, but also like turn based combat games, to simulate human error. When you are in a real time combat system, you don't need to simulate human error because you can just have human error. Anybody who has seen me play a shooter can attest to that. Or to just seen anybody play any game. I'm sure you've all seen Let's Players just, they'll be playing Breath of the Wild and accidentally blow themselves off a cliff, or play the Batman Arkham games and completely miss the prompt to counter an attack and get smacked in the face by a bat or something. I'm sure you've all seen people just absolutely whiff a hail of bullets that they're trying to shoot at an enemy. So like you don't need the dice rolls to simulate that. You could just have that because video games are by and large a skill-based medium. The better you are at the game, the easier the game is going to become. So the reason why difficulty curves exist is because the idea is that the more you learn about the game, the easier the game becomes, and therefore, in order to stay engaging and stay challenging, the harder the challenges have to be. So, but a lot of the stuff, it really bothers me in fantasy stories because video games are a relatively recent thing. And these tropes tend to be used in settings that invoke uh, medieval or even more ancient, or even like as recently as a Victorian era stuff. May I ask for one final thing? Is this weird hodgepodge of like Victorian era England and medieval Germany? It doesn't quite gel together because this is another thing because it kind of this is kind of a separate issue that I'm starting to have with this genre, and it's an issue that's been in the isekai genre for a long time now. Uh, Everyone's probably seen the meme where it's like, oh, the isekai with the starting town, even though starting towns don't actually exist. Like it's that's another video game trope. The starting town is because a game has to introduce you to the concepts. It has to like tutorialize things. It has to teach you the ropes before it throws you into the deep end. But in reality, like everyone will have like a starting town, but there's no guarantee like that's gonna be easy. Like that's not realistic. That's not how stories outside of video games tend to work. Forgot where I was going with that. Bothers me in sorry, I'm literally working. Re-listen to what I just said. Okay, yeah. So So video games are a relatively recent thing, and in order to invoke video game terminology, you have to make these people talk like modern people with like modern slang, and it doesn't fit. And because it doesn't really fit, things have to be like squashed and squished and crushed and melted together in order to make it fit, which is why every single fucking isekai setting looks exactly the goddamn same. Every single starting town looks the goddamn same. Every they pull from the same handful of races every single time. They'll even like uh call attention to it when they subvert it. Like they can't even just subvert it for subversion's sake. They have to like call out the fact that like, oh, uh slimes are considered a low level enemy because slimes are one of the first enemies you fight in Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest is one of the like first party based JRPGs ever. And so like the slimes are like ubiquitous to Dragon Quest and therefore ubiquitous to the entire genre. Like, oh, wouldn't it be super shocking if slimes turned out to be like really overpowered like they are in Konosuba? Like I'm talking about Konosuba here. Like Konosuba did this. Uh no, I still like Konosuba because Konosuba is funny. You can get away with a lot if you are funny. If you're going to do these tropes, you have to be funny. Uh, but like, it's still when you call attention to that, all you're doing is reinforcing the fact that it is so ubiquitous and so tropey and cliche and uh, ever present within the genre. Like, it was actually a big relief for me when Freerin didn't use any video game terminology. Like, it maintained its aesthetic constantly. It was like medieval Europe, but like late period medieval Europe, like more like verging on the Renaissance era of Europe. I would not be surprised if someone pulls out like a matchlock firearm at some point in Freerin, because that's kind of the vibes. But even though Freerin doesn't use anything differently and it doesn't do anything, it doesn't have anything that these other fantasy shows don't have, it's still really good because it's so focused and it's so consistent and it's so cohesive. Like you don't have a 20th century jackoff dropping in making Star Wars references. Because Freeren's not an isekai. Freeren's not an isekai at all, but it does exist in the kind of setting that you would expect from an isekai. Yeah, when you pull from all the same, when you have dozens of shows every year pulling from the same like 4 or 5 sources, from the same 3 or 4 inspirations, with the same 5 or 6 races, and the same like 2 or 3 different magic systems, and the same 7 or 8 monsters, and the same 1 or 2 like aesthetics. That's when everything becomes like really watered down and really apparent and really generic and really annoying. And it's why the isekai genre grew so stale so fast. Like people have been actively complaining about the isekai genre for longer than the isekai genre was legitimately popular. Like the isekai genre was actually like at the height of its critical popularity for like 4 or 5 years. And it stopped around the time that like ReZero season 1 and Konosuba season 1 ended. That was like 10 years ago. It's been 10 years since Isekai ran out of good ideas. Meanwhile, the thing that is basically supplanted it in popularity and in prestige and financial success, rom coms, they're still finding fresh new ways to like remix the same handful of tropes. Like, rom coms are also very tropey. You always got the tsundere, you always got the kudere, you always got the, well, not always, but you oftentimes have like a yandere or a himadere, like all these other deres. You have like the contrived scenarios or increase like romantic and sexual tension. But even when it calls attention to it, again, you can get away with a lot more when you're funny. And rom coms nowadays are funny. They put a lot of emphasis on the humor, like Alia, Roshidere. Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian. Yuki is obsessed with like anime and rom coms, and she's an otaku. She's a big weeb, and she instigates all these scenarios. Like in any other rom com, these scenarios would be like, "Oh man, this is such bad luck. We got locked in the gym storage room, and it's all sweaty, and I can see your nipples." Uh, that literally happened in like Maka Ine, where like she gets like Lemon gets a heat stroke and like starts stripping in front of Nukumizu, and it's just dumb and weird and not in character. And then, oh, conveniently, she like was in such bad heat that she just magically forgot about it, because we can't have that lingering embarrassment getting in the way of their budding friendship slash potential romance. uh I love Maki Ine, but I was really bothered by the way that whole thing was handled. But there's a similar situation in one of the Alia bonus chapters that will probably not be animated, so minor spoiler. Um, only uh, the gym locker room does not get accidentally locked or locked because of some chaotic happenstance. It gets locked because Yuki is a goddamn troll. Like she literally has like instigates the entire student council to like do this thing where they're all spread out, like looking at these different mysterious things going on in the school, because apparently that's like a big thing in Japanese schools, that they all have like various mysteries that are all made up by the students in order to scare other students. It's a whole thing. It's a cultural thing, I guess. Um, but she does that, and then make sure that Yuki and make sure that Alia and Masachika are together, and then she literally sneaks around behind them, waits for them to go into the gym locker or gym storage room, and then she locks them in. She's like, it's actually her, like it's actually a character beat, not a plot beat or a happenstance that improves their relationship. And it doesn't end up even going anywhere. They just get all hot and bothered, and Masachika can like see Alia's bra through her white shirt as she's sweating. But then they end up getting help and getting out without any like shenanigans really going on. Much to Yuki's chagrin. And Yuki is constantly doing that throughout the series. You'll see her do that early in the first couple episodes of season 2. Uh, there's a, well, minor spoiler for something that, for one of the jokes that happens in uh, volume 4. Uh, she steals Alia's bra. They're all like at this condo or whatever on the beach, enjoying their summer vacation. Alia goes into the changing room and Yuki's with her, and they take a bath or whatever. But then on her way out, Yuki will straight up steals Alia's bra, and then gaslights Alia into thinking that she just forgot it and that she just has to wear a shirt without a bra and go upstairs. And at the same time she's doing that, she's telling Masachika, like, hey, can you, like, come down here and do this thing in this other room? Making sure that they are on a pathway to where they cross, and Alia has to, like, move past Masachika while not wearing it. It's a whole funny bit thing, but it's all this thing that, like, is built up in a way to where Alia and Masachika think is just a coincidence and just happenstance, but really it's Yuki fucking with them. She just loves watching Alia squirm and loves watching Masachika get all bashful and embarrassed. Not quite sure what that has to do with video game settings, but it's just a way that you can like make these tropes make sense. Um, for instance, going back to My Hero Academia for a bit, early on in season 2, Bakugo notes that Todoroki's ice powers works like an MP bar in an RPG. Like yes, but no, because it's a little more complicated than that. Because in reality, things like MP bars are a way for video games to simulate stuff like magic and energy and stamina and the stuff that stuff would realistically take. Uh, Not the other way around. My Hero Academia handles it very well. There's a lot of video game talk in My Hero Academia. Like there's straight up two of the villains, Shigaraki and Spinner, they bond over fucking League of Legends. That's canon. Uh, but it's all them like relating something that does exist in their world that they are familiar with and relating that to what's going on around them. But it makes sense because those types of video game mechanics exist in order to simulate the stuff that they're experiencing in the real world. Again, it's kind of like a chicken and the egg situation, but video games again are a much more recent thing. You know, they're the most recent medium of storytelling out there. And they exist in order to, or every single video game mechanic exists to simulate something, because at the end of the day a video game is just a bunch of ones and zeros. Like it's never going to fully simulate real life. There's always going to be some slimming down, some simplification, some taking these abstract concepts and these intangible qualities and making them into math. And sometimes math is boring. Math is really fun when it makes your fighter feel more powerful, but it is not fun when it is in a passive medium like an anime. Uh, and that's the big final point I wanted to address, is that video game plots work because you are the one doing it. I talked earlier today about Jurassic World Evolution 3. I actually probably talked about that longer than I originally intended. But the story in that game is fine. It's good. But it is good because you are the one dealing with these crises. You are the one having to make these financial decisions about like, okay, like how do I turn this around? How do I deal with this? What's the priority here? How do I enclose these dinosaurs in a way that prevents this from happening again? How do I keep these species separated? That was actually a big problem with one of the final levels I encountered is the Biosyn level, where there's only you have limited building space. It's a pretty sizable map, but for most of it you can only build like certain things. Like you can't build gates or anything like that. Like you can build fences, but you can't build gates to get in and out of those fences. So you have to like be a little smarter in order to keep certain species separated so that they can cohabitate better. Uh, but like as things get sabotaged and as you deal with the crisis, like you're the one put on the pressure, you're the one making things happen, and you're the one succeeding. Uh, you try to do that in an anime, it can become very repetitive, very boring. There is a quote by, I believe, Alfred Hitchcock that said that story is life with all the boring parts cut out. Video games, in a lot of ways, put the boring parts back in. And because of that, they don't adapt well into other mediums. Because in a video game, you are the one making the decisions, you're the one in control, you are the one succeeding. But in an anime, you're not. And no amount of polish, no amount of smart character writing, no amount of over the top choreography is going to make up for the fact that you are watching something happen rather than making something happen. It's a completely different thing. Which is why video games have been so difficult to adapt into other mediums. That's been the biggest hurdle, is trying to like make up for the fact. And the fact of the matter is, you can't make up for that fact. You have to just take the story, the characters, the vibes, the aesthetics, as well as some of the story beats, and you have to actually like completely overhaul it in order to make it work in a different medium. You have to be able and willing to make those creative decisions. But that's all I have for today. I've been going for a little over an hour, which is actually a little longer than I originally wanted to go. Thank you all for joining me. Next week, maybe Jurassic World Evolution 3 Sandbox, or maybe One Piece related stuff. Who knows? Nobody knows, except... No, not even me. I tend to make up my mind the night before, or literally today it was this morning. Like, literally at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was like, this is what I'm going to talk about on the live show today. All right, you all have a good